Everything, literally everything, raged in the soul of Simon Verhoeven, irritated by the heat, independent behavior of his son, and especially Blondie Based, which for 20 years was next to it in the status of a legitimate wife. Daily visits to the Messier after whose sessions Nora flew into the apartment, as if on wings, drove him out of balance. He wanted to shout to his wife, "Eat a lemon!" He had his own suspicions about the Messier. Simon worked as deputy head of sales for a perfume company and could pay for his wife's whims. He never considered her intelligent, but she was ranked in the category of beautiful. Nora, by nature, was a homebody, most of the time spent in shopping and in the kitchen. But after meeting a certain Iris Wood, the range of her vital interests had waned considerably. It was still possible to bear the fact that the family's diet now consisted of convenience foods, but it was almost impossible to get through to the wife. She was either scuffing her feet at the fitness club, or swimming in a pool, or extending her nails. The worst day of the week for Simon was Friday. After all, it was then, together with her unattractive girlfriend Nora, visited bars or even worse, male striptease. When that cheeky porker, Iris Wood, swam into their house and coldly exclaimed, "Nora, are you ready?" The man remembered his youthful enthusiasm for boxing and imagined with pleasure that if he gave this lady a right hook, she would put her hand to the place of impact and mumble in surprise, "Nora, what an idiot your husband," and if the left exclaimed, "Oh, what an embarrassment, meet me, dear, the day after tomorrow. I can show up like this in a dozen places." Most of the week, Simon with his wife, and Dina Med, he was busy at work until late in the evening. However, for almost a week now, the man had been on vacation and was frankly bored, sitting around the TV all day long. It was Friday evening, and Iris honored them with a visit. A dressed-up Nora literally sprinted out of her room to meet her friend. Simon slowed her at the door and warned her menacingly, "Honey, I want chops. There are store-bought chicken chops in the refrigerator, so fry them yourself." His wife replied without a trace of embarrassment, "Yeah, it's easy, convenient, and no hustle." His obsessive friend intervened. Simon pulled his wife to him. "I want meat, Nora, with meat, not half-finished products, where only breadcrumbs per kilogram are hung out. It's not good for you to eat meat at night." She objected and slammed the door. Simon sighed and went to the nearest cafe. At least they gave him a proper meal. He spent a couple more days of beer and questionable TV shows until he got a strange phone call. "Hey, it was Iris. I have a favor to ask of you." "What is it?" Simon was confused and intimate. "What?" "Your wife insulted me. She took my lover away from me. I just wanted to get my life back on track, and she ruined it." "What? Nora cheated on me?" "Why would she cheat on you right away?" "No, but that mean refused to go out with me because of her. Oh, Nora's married woman, and she flirting with him." Iris, on the other end of the phone, signed heavily. "Help me. What do you want from me?" "Intimacy. It will make me feel better." "Iris, I don't want you." "I'm not for real." "Oh, what's that?" Simon thought for a moment. Not that he liked the idea, but it could be used as a carte blanche to make Nora jealous and thereby bring attention to himself, and also to tell his wife that Iris had seduced him and thus put them in a fight. "I'm yours," he told her. Irritation and anger accumulated over a year of faithful service to the field of perfumery immediately found an outlet. Taking the car keys, he dashed up and down the flights of stairs, got into the car, and set off on his adventures. "And why did I even get married? To whom?" Simon reasoned irritably. "And to this unfeeling madam, so that, having achieved, so to speak, financial prosperity, He could chew tasteless convenience foods, endure emaciure, and see stupid. Iris, I would have to get drunk and drive to that insolent twerp house. Pulling up in front of the nearest bar, Simon put the car on the alarm and entered the establishment. His subordinate was sitting at the bar, sipping a cocktail from a straw. When he saw the chief, he blinked his eyes in surprise and said, "Good evening, Mr. Verhoeven. Are you resting?" No less startled, he explained. "No, I've come to buy liqueur. Some distant relatives have me to visit, you know." Taking a bottle of whiskey, Simon went out and stood by the car thinking. He decided that there was no time to retreat, and the plan needed immediate realization. Half an hour later, he was at the address given by his wife's friend. Simon parked his car not far from Iris Woods and looked around carefully. There was complete silence and tranquility. Even the sighing of birds seemed to sound louder against the background of this seclusion. The building was surrounded by a dense forest, which the man was glad of it such a piquant situation. He regarded it as cover. Simon climbed the steps to the porch and knocked on the door. No one answered, so he decided to look inside. The house had a cozy atmosphere, with the long hallway leading deep inside the cottage. He felt his whole life freeze for a moment. The next step could change his future forever. Simon made his way into the spacious living room. There he heard a rustle behind him, and turning around, Iris Wood was standing in front of him, looking at him mockingly. She led him to the table and poured the first shot, then the second. They drank merrily, laughing and discussing what their phantom intimacy would look like. And then everything spun and spun, and when Simon woke up in the morning, he realized that he had drunk more than ever the night before. His head was pounding, nausea coming up his throat, and he was thirsty at the same time. "Nora, help me. Get some water. Nora is waiting for you at home with a club or a frying pan." Icewood's low voice said that. Simon jerked up sharply and opened his eyes. The landlady was floating spectacularly, even majestically, through the doorway. Her large nakedness made a lasting impression on the man, but it was her attire that caused a greater shock. Verhoeven remembered that it had been quite decent the evening before, and here, a bra, stocking, and that was it. The rest was pure nudity. "Didn't you say it will be fake? You're such a lover that it is." The woman smiled. Simon lifted the sheet, and the sight of her naked body made him numb. "What? So we've had it all?" he asked, getting out of bed and covering himself shamefully. "And this? Where are my underpants?" "Don't know where your underpants are. Look at the chandelier. It was passionate last night. Well, at least it was interesting. I must be with someone, even if you're not a heroic lover. Although your betting exploits will soon to be known to the world." "What are you talking about?" "You will see yourself starring on YouTube. I've already posted a video." You're ruining my life. It was an accident." He approached her with a menacing look. "Don't hiss. Your favorite, Nora." "Why?" Simon blinked his eyes in confusion. "She and I had a bet that there are no faithful men, so she asked you to check it out. She thought you would be strong, so even asked me for a drink to loosen you up. But you don't. Like everyone else." She laughed loudly. Simon shuddered inwardly, but realized there was nothing more to be ashamed of. Desperately, in his socks, he stepped into the courtyard. He ran across the street, covering himself with the sheet he held in his hands. He shook himself a little and looked around. "I'm a fool," he sobbed. "What a fool!" A woman's voice came out of the bushes, and an elderly woman came up to him, sweet and thin. She was wetting the flower beds near her cottage. Simon hid behind the nearest tree. "Hello!" The woman greeted the stranger. not the least but embarrassed by the sight of his naked body. "Sophie, dear, we have a guest," she addressed someone, and in a couple of minutes another modest-looking lady, a little older than her, was standing next to her. "Iris had brought a new one again," she said quietly. Nightmare, Simon thought. Now the other one will be staring at him. Both stood smiling. "He's well built," they said. "Maybe our passionate Iris would order him for a striptease." In this anecdotal situation, it seems to the man that it will be quite natural to approach the ladies so that they could examine him closer. So he took a step forward to fence, jokingly acting something like a sculptor. "Can you see it? Or is it even closer?" "Oh, the ancient Greek god." And both women laughed contentedly, and the friends looked at him for a few more minutes, and then lost interest, began to whisper, apparently deep in intimate memories. Simon went back inside. "Where's my car?" he asked Iris. "In the woods. You gave it to one of the local fools yesterday. He said he could drive it around until he got bored." "Oh, what?" The man sank down on the bed. "I haven't paid off the loan for it yet." "Well, maybe she's still alive." Iris handed him his pants and shirt. He pulled on wrinkled clothes and stood there sighing, trying to recover from the shock. About 10 minutes passed. Coming out of his stupor, he stepped out into the yard and saw the treetops behind the house. The forest! A salutary thought struck him. He began to walk cautiously around the house. The old ladies, who continued their intimate conversation and looked curiously in his direction, suddenly became quiet. "Let's catch up with him. He's very handsome," suggested one of them. "Why, he can always use a man in the household," winked the other. After those words, Simon thought he was moving faster than a cheetah in a shroud. He no longer doubted that the women were capable of catching up with him and taking him into sexual captivity. Hanging overcome with fear 500 meters, he fell into the grass. When he realized that the danger had passed, he found cigarettes and a lighter in his shirt, sat down on the ground, and inhaled with pleasure. Behind him in the bushes, he heard a stirring. Simon's hair, already stalking out in different directions, stood up. He turned cautiously. A cane appeared in the bushes. The cigarette fell out of the man's hands, and he braced himself for the worst. Finally, a handsome old man appeared, for some reason, wearing a nice three-piece suit, hat and tie, and leaning on his cane. He approached Simon. "Do you smoke?" he asked him sternly. "Sometimes. Verhoeven lied for some reason. I've been drinking all my life. I drank under Truman. I drank under Bush. And still do. I didn't recognize prohibition. And I don't recognize it. Remember the persecution in the country." "I do," Simon answered. "Very much so." He played along. "You couldn't drink in the country. I circumvented the prohibitions, and as you can see, I'm alive. But I love my America. For freedom and equality." Simon decided to keep the conversation going and show his intelligence, and to see if he was still alive after last night's party with Iris Wood. It's not uncommon for people to find ways to get around laws and regulations in order to maintain their freedom and independence. However, it is important to remember that obeying laws and respecting the rules of society contributes to overall harmony and order. Historical examples show that prohibitions and restrictions can lead to protests and struggles to free oneself from them. Often, such conflicts lead to serious consequences and even violence. It is important to seek ways to resolve conflicts peacefully and reach compromises so that society can develop and prosper. The old man, after his clever speech, looked at Simon suspiciously for a long time, then took a bottle of gin from his inside pocket. "Smoking is bad for you. I see your brain is damaged. Have a drink." "No, thank you," he grumbled. But have you seen a stranger car around here by chance? I saw it, but it was damaged by our local, with peculiarities, as they say nowadays. It's parked near his house. Follow this path. He showed Simon the direction. And you will come out right there. Thank you, Verhoeven said with difficulty, flushed to the ears and moved forward. When he reached the car, he almost fainted. The mud of the wheels was frozen in the shape of cave stalactites. The right door had an impressive dent, and the hood had bird droppings. To the owner's great surprise, it started. Thank you, Creator, the man thought tiredly, and drove off. Feeling the proximity of the city, he cheered up. His brain worked feverishly. How to explain his absenteeism to his wife? You can't go home like that. A salutary thought struck the exhausted head, and he went to the employee who was always happy to help destitute and abandoned man. When she opened the door of the apartment, she stared at the chief in amazement. What's wrong? Mary, please don't ask a question. I'm in a jam and I need help, he lied cheekily. Oh, sure. Anything for you. Mary, can you buy me some clothes that fit? The woman sized up Simon's pants and shirt and said, Sure, and smiled. And underwear, Mary? The guest asked guiltily out the door. She looked him over from top to bottom in amazement, and then, feeling himself on fire, Simon spoke absolute nonsense. Don't look at me so judgmental, my dear. I'm not Don Juan, you see. They're Robin. I've ruined my nerves in the chair. I've robbed a hole in it, getting away from the chase. The woman blinked a lot, then frowned thoughtfully and disappeared behind the door. It is easier with the beautiful than with the smart, Simon thought with relief. While Mary was gone, he showered and strategized how to appear in front of his wife. Mary returned 2 hours later. She had bought and ironed new clothes. Simon stood nervously in front of her, wrapped in a towel. From time to time, Mary threw urgent glances at him. The man took the ironed clothes and began to put on a shirt. The mistress didn't leave the room. Mary, I'm going to change, he said, glad to feel the commanding tone returning. I will turn my back, the woman replied playfully. Watching the chief pull up his pants, Mary Playful said, Simon, I've liked you for a long time. That's too much, he thought and said in an official tone. Mary, thank you. I like the way you work, too. Clean. And, like, no one else. I'm thinking of asking the boss to raise your salary. I will pay you back on Monday. We'll have dinner sometime. And he walked briskly out of the apartment, to the delighted gaze on his employee. He didn't wash the car, as the further plan of action was to keep the mutilated car in its present form. He was already driving up to the house in full readiness to tell an inspired lie when he saw a familiar figure in the driveway. Nora's mother he recognized from the back, just in time as always, he thought ironically. Simon's exhausted by adventure mind created a new improvisation on the fly, and taking advantage of Agnes Smith's fears, hatred of his current boss, he deftly jumped out of the car with the words, How right you were, Agnes. Douglas is a scoundrel. The shocked woman froze with an expression that could not be described. First of all, it was the first time that her son-in-law had recognized that she was right, and secondly, he had never before called her so affectionately by first name. Douglas is a bastard, Simon repeated. He got me up in the middle of the night, held me back from vacation, and sent me to the backwoods to promote the product. He told me to drive my own car, off-road. I had an accident, but I survived. Agnes looked sympathetically at the car, then at her son-in-law. I told you, Simon. He's using you. Ask for a promotion. Looking out from behind, he boldly entered the apartment. A furious Nora rushed to meet him first, but her mother prevented bloodshed. Nora, don't attack him for nothing. It's all because of Douglas. Warm up the chops. My husband is exhausted and hungry. Simon walked boldly into the kitchen. His wife feared her mother even more than he disliked her. "Simon, I see Nora's been travelling around never home. What's her business?" Agnes asked suspiciously. Simon looked at his wife, frightened face, and said proudly, "We decided together that Nora should not only do housework but also study. She's taking a computer course. I will let her." "Simon? Why does she need such a big bag for computer courses?" The woman glanced toward the hallway. "These are books," Simon replied, devouring chop after chop with gusto. "And this one, who came here the other day, vulgar-looking long, who's she?" "Noren's tutor. She's into French," the man said quickly. "We noticed her vulgarity right away, but she's cheap. You kept telling us, Agnes, to save money. We decided to take your advice." "Nora, Simon has laid it all out. Explain everything. Respectful, polite. He's the kind of husband we've been looking for." "Well, thank you, my dears. The dinner is wonderful." Simon, still in the image of a model son-in-law, first kissed his wife and then her mother. "I will go and rest." In the bedroom, he gladly lay down in the snow-white bed. His wife entered the room and asked in a whisper, "Simon, are you asleep?" "I'm falling asleep," he mumbled. "Honey, Iris is calling in the car outside the house to have a chat. I will tell Mom that we're learning French there." "Go ahead," the man said indifferently and stretched sweetly. "Simon, you're an angel. I deleted the video. Didn't get enough views. I'm not a saint myself." She sighed. "I will feed you well, and I will cook for you, I promise." "I believe," mumbled the man exhausted by adventures, and curled up and fell into cozy sleep.